Hello, everybody. My name is Alberto. I'm from Studiokom, which is an Italian consultancy firm specialized in helping small, medium businesses to find customers and open new markets on international environments. Today, we are be talking about Italian wines in Thailand. And we will do that by talking with four of the most, let's say, prominent Italian wine experts on this market. This is part of a series of webinars that we've been doing since April. The first one was about Chinese market, and then we talked about Valpolicella, and then about the so-called natural wine or Japanese wines last time. Today we'll be talking about Thailand and Italian wines in Thailand. So we will do that starting with a little bit of history, because we have the privilege and honor to have here one of the first wine professional on the market, Michel Conrad, who is going to join us in helping us to understand how the wine business started in Thailand and how we got here. So thank you very much, Michel. Please join us, and we are very excited to hear from you. And let's try to understand how the wine market started and how it started to flourish, and how is the current situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alberto. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So mainly the Thai market actually started thanks or because of our American GIs based in Thailand back during the Vietnam War. When the war was here, the Bangkok and Pattaya became very developed thanks to the military. Once they left, the infrastructure was here, which means tourists started to arrive. Of course, Americans, Europeans, French, Germans started to slowly come to Thailand. With that, back in the end of 70s, early 80s, is where you could see the first few professional wine importers setting up a company in Thailand. Then, out of the blues, we had our late father King Rama IX, who one day during his anniversary speech mentioned on national television that red wine was good for health. Since that day, we saw the wines import times 10, doubling, more than doubling in the next few months. And this has started. Then we had a backlash back in 1997, where the financial Asian crisis hit us, where 3/4 of the company had to close because of the foreign exchange crisis. But then, 98, the recovery came very fast. And I think this is what we call today the new generation of wine business in Thailand.
This is very good.
So that's mainly the history. Yeah.
And so how did it start to flourish then? So
back in 1998, what flourished mainly was the on-trade, which we call hotel and restaurants.
Yeah, clear.
And this has helped actually the wine consumption and the wine import as well. Tourists drinking wine, locals drinking more wines, wine bar were starting to come up as well.
Yeah, clear. And what about nowadays? How we got here? I mean, start flourishing. Restaurants and so people feeling healthy, drinking wine, and so nowadays Thai market is definitely one of the most peculiar in Asia. So it's okay. Later we will also talk about taxation and other important and operative things. But so how developed the market, in which direction, and just to get here?
So the advantage we have is, first, tourism has developed a lot until February 2020.
Yes,
So
of course.
tourism has grown from 5 million tourists back in 98 to 40 million last year, which has, of course, helped wine consumption. And then the local Thais have also started to drink wine, switch from whiskey, brandy to wine. And this has been seen, especially in the past 10 years.
Yeah, clear.
Where then my colleague will be able to explain
exactly
the development of this.
Exactly, because let's try to understand also the standpoint of like a restaurant owner like Luca Cini, and you've been in Thailand since quite a long time. So what can you say about this process of growth, seeing from your point of view?
Well, I can tell you from what happened from the 2013 when I moved from Hong Kong to Phuket, directly to Phuket. At that time, I didn't open yet my shop. I was a consumer of wine. And at that time, we definitely didn't have that quantity and that selection of wine that we can have now. In 7 years, everything changed, and this is thanks to Michel and his company and many other companies that become importing wine and start to import wine in Thailand and in Phuket. So I started as a consumer. I opened my shop basically as a wine shop, a wine bar. The selection at that time was not wide at all. I started importing wines by myself, and that was the first and the last time I did that, because importing wines in Thailand is very difficult, and Michel can tell you about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So after that, many things changed. After 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, you could see that the more importers coming up, more and more labels coming into the market, and more Italian labels coming into the market. And this was very important to me, because I decided, I was a little bit crazy at that time. Someone told me, well, you are crazy opening a wine shop, wine bar specialized on Italian wines only. You might be crazy. I was a little bit crazy, but I also trust my professionality and my passion about Italian wines. So year after year, all these things changed, and nowadays we can source many different suppliers, of course, and wine producers. And now it's fun, actually. Let me tell you, I can find many interesting labels, Italian labels, in the Thai market.
And I have to say that Luca is very active also on social media, and is very good at spreading Italian wine culture in Thailand. So
yeah, that's my mission. I feel it
is
as a mission. And
I can tell you, I can feel it from here too. So it's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And so we. What is the dimension of the market, of Thai market, at least not only for Italian wines, but in general? Diego, can you just give an idea of how big is the market?
Yeah, I can actually. I'm going to share a presentation about this. Just to give a rough idea of the numbers that we're talking about, because like there's always like maybe a little bit of misconception of what the real dimensions of the Thai market for mainly Italian wines, but for wine in general is. So it's good to have an idea about what we're talking about. So basically, I would start, first of all, I think this is very important slide. Can you see right?
Yeah, very clearly. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the first thing. Alcohol consumption in Thailand by category. And look at wine. Wine is just 1%. It's basically nothing. It's still nothing, even if in the past like 20 years grew a lot. More than 2/3 of the alcohol consumption is beer, and another 27% is spirits, mainly local produced. Out of these, almost everything is locally produced because there is Singa, Chang, Leo for the beers and like local brown spirits production that is very big. And actually in past 5 years, as you can see, the CAGR is actually negative. It means that the consumption in terms of volumes actually went a little bit down, but there was like, for example, Luca said, there's a very good point that is the variety of the products and the quality of the products actually increase. Thailand is a wine producer, but as you can see, imported wine accounts for 97% of the total consumption because, of course, like it's a very, very small producer. If we sum up all the imported alcohol, so not only wine, but even spirits, beers, and so on, we account to only 6 to 8% of the total consumption. So it's a market that is very still conservative, and it's, relying a lot on what is produced locally, mostly because of a price point. Then we will see the taxation, how it affects this. Secondly, I will make a little comparison between Thailand and some other more mature markets than the people that is following us maybe know better than this market. So we will make a comparison between US, which has over 300 million consumers, Japan, which is also over 120 million people, Thailand, which is close to 70 million. So it's a huge base, and Singapore, which is a local market that is close to Thailand, but is much, much smaller, just over 5 million inhabitants. And as you can see, USA is a huge market. Everybody in the wine business, every restaurant, hotel, wine producer in the world know about the US being the biggest market in the world for wine. And as you can see, look at the comparison to what Thailand is. Thailand is really, really tiny so far, also compared to Japan. While, for example, it's similar to Singapore, but we saw that the population is very, very different in comparison. And this is just taking in comparison between Asian countries. So Japan, which is the most mature market for Asia, would be the comparison, right? So like, especially for wineries coming from Europe, from Italy in this case, and willing to start to work in Thailand, there are expectations that as the things are now, they cannot be, attended. As you can see, like the difference in consumption from Japan to Thailand is very, very big. But it's, you can put it in comparison with a country like Singapore, where like in terms of how the consumption and the culture of wine is much more than Thailand, but of course, like the difference in population makes it comparable. As you can see here, this is a slide for wine consumption per capita in terms of liters. Everybody is accounted into this. You see, USA is not only a huge market, but they also drink a lot of wine per person. Japan and Singapore have a similar level, but there is a big difference in population, while Thailand has a very, very small consumption still. If you can bring this amount similar to, for example, what Singapore is, then the potential of the market is really, really big. So that is the silver line. The potential of the Thai market is really big, but so far is still a small market. Coming to see what the wine consumption is in terms of comparing countries, the imports, actually you can see the 19% is Italian wine. We have to say that a big chunk of that is actually in the sparkling segment, most notably Prosecco. Of course, France, you see, is smaller than Italy, but is much higher in terms of value, while the biggest one is Australia. There are several reasons because of this, notably Chile, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, but Japan in terms of wine is not very important. They have an FTA with Thailand, so they don't pay duties, import duties, which for imported products from EU is 54%. So this is why, for example, Australian and Chilean wine, namely, they have a big competitive advantage with respect to French and Italian products. Another important thing to say is that Australia is the #1 in importing volume, but France is the #1 importing value. So also this is something that, for example, for us, for Italian wine, we should look at. It doesn't really matter how much you import, as long as you import product, quality product, sorry. For what concerns Italy, we are both number 4 in import and value, but we are the number 1 in volume for sparkling. What is the problem? The problem is that in the main countries, Italy has the lowest price point per imported liter compared to the others. So we import a good amount of products, but at a very cheap price point. Another couple of things that could be interesting to see how the market works here in Thailand is that the consumption per channel, it's still, even if it changed during the years, it's still 2/3 of it is on trade. Is on trade. We have 1/3, while off trade is 2/3. And the point is that e-commerce is just 2% of off trade. Nowadays, in the 2020s, you would expect a huge amount of this sold e-commerce. If you look at China, if you look at Japan, if you look at other countries, this is very big, while it's not for Thailand, not probably, because a low perception. And then finally, another surprising thing is that in a tropical country where basically you have no days of the year that is below 30 degrees, you still have a consumption that is almost 3/4 of red wines, while you would expect with all the tourists, with the resorts and tourist places that you have on the seaside, you would expect a much, much higher consumption of white and rosé. Why is this? Again, it's a cultural thing, and it's a sign of a market that is not mature yet. So here we have a lot of work to do, but the potential again is quite interesting.
Does it have anything to do also with the food? Because talking about spicy food, maybe it's much
Actually,
easier to pair it with the red than others.
Actually, if you think about it, like spicy food actually goes well also with bubbles, with
definitely, yeah.
some acidity that you can find very easily in white wines. And like, it's very difficult to pair spicy food maybe with a bold red, because like what is not said here is that yes, the red is the majority, but it's not like a Pinot Noir. Very often,
exactly.
Body like Australia, warm weather Shiraz. So it's quite interesting the pairing that we have with the food. It is said that very often, like, you have wine while you're having Western food. It's not super typical that you have this with Thai food.
Yeah. Anyway, and the picture that you draw was very interesting, and it says that okay, we are just in a very early phase of the development of this market, which is growing. This is the good thing, and the potential is huge. Of course, this year is very peculiar, let's say, and it's not easy at all for you guys. Like Luca is in Phuket, and of course Phuket relies a lot on tourists, so it's not easy at all. Or Matteo, like working, trying to sell wine to restaurants, and the restaurants this year is they're struggling. So it's not easy this year, but the message is that the potential is huge, and of course we're gonna go back to normality. And once we are there, there is a lot to do. One thing which is not easy to change now is taxation. You mentioned already, and taxation is something that absolutely affects the sales.
Alberto, that is exactly the point why the market is not growing at a fast pace.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite obvious, and I believe that you can ask Michel to explain to all of us exactly.
Yeah, also because I personally sell Valpolicella wines there, so it's talking about a price point which is pretty high. Our Amarone goes out from the cellar at, let's say, like even over 100 euros. So you can imagine the price that it lands on the market. So yeah. I'm very, very curious also myself. So Michel, can you just give an idea of how taxation works in Thailand, please?
Yes, I will. But just before to to let you understand actually the background of our high taxation, there are two issues in Thailand, or two matters. One is we import very small amount of alcohol, but we consume a lot. We are number 8 consumer country in the world. So there's a huge problem with alcohol on spirits. Thus, the government is trying to reduce this drinking habit on spirits. And of course, one way is to increase the taxes. The second also, Thailand is, as you all know, is a Buddhist country. Buddhism, one of the karma is alcohol. So in the government, there's a lot of anti-alcohol lobbying done by a little bit of, religious people. We have a lot of festivals as well, religious days, election days, which are all non-alcoholic days, where you cannot sell alcohol.
Yeah.
So this explains, which we always had a high tax back in the 80s already. It's just getting worse. So today, the latest tax change was done in 2017. We more or less have every 4 or 5 years a tax change, which is affecting much more our business rather than tsunami, SARS. Okay, COVID is new, but all these other crises were actually over very fast, but the tax increase were one of the worst to hit us. And so today, if you want, you have the tax is based in 2 structures. One is the import duty, like Diego mentioned, which is of 54% for European wines, 0 for the other. And then we have the excise department tax, which is based on the local government decision. And this excise tax is split in 2. One in volume, which amounts to 233 baht per bottle, equal to €6 a bottle. So similar to Singapore and other countries, we have a fixed tax. But then we have another second tax based on the retail price, consumer price on shelf, which is valued at 10%. So if you have a €20 wine selling in supermarket, you have to pay another €2 taxes on top of the 6. The more expensive the wine is, of course, the more taxes you pay.
Clear. And okay, but as a, of course, this is something that affects not all, because we saw also Australia and Chile doesn't follow the same. They don't have to face this problem, but this is something that affects all the other countries. So we are just one of the part. I'm also curious to understand how is the on-trade situation now, because I believe that Matteo, he is working every day, like visiting customers on restaurants and wine bars and etc. So I believe that your experience can be very helpful to understand how is the situation now.
Yeah, of course. Like as Diego and Michel presented, the taxation plays a huge role in the sales that we are achieving now in Thailand. Like Michel said, the wine here is also considered as a luxury item. So as for the rich people, let's say, so therefore it comes with a very high taxation. For example, there's also a similar high taxation for luxury items such as cars, luxury cars imported from Europe, Ferrari, Lamborghini, BMW, they've all been heavily taxed. The consequence, let's say, of this very high tax, when other people also go to sell to restaurants and hotel, is that we have to sell these wines to the F&B outlets at a certain price, which is already quite high compared to the price that the ones coming from the region of origin. Therefore, the hotel or the restaurant are forced to sell it at a very high price tag, and this can actually put off many customers. You know, for example, a wine that you could sell in Italy, let's say, in a restaurant, you know, not a fine dining, let's say, not a fine dining establishment, for 25, 30 euro, okay? When it comes to Thailand, after we import the wine, we pay all the taxes, we sell to the restaurants or hotel, the hotel have to put his margin on top of it. They are basically forced to sell it to 3 to 4 times higher than what you would pay for this wine if you would buy it in Europe, let's say, or in Italy. So it would be from 25 to 30 euro, it might go to 75 to 100 euro. And the problem is that when we talk about, again, with tourists coming to Thailand, they are not aware of this kind of tax. And most of the time I still hear, and also from my friends or people who travel to Thailand, that they have this perception of Thailand still being a cheap paradise, let's say, for holiday, because, you know, you can have cheap beers by the beach, cheap food, you know, a lot of street food, all this kind of thing. But then when it comes to wine, the price is absolutely out of the world, no? So
they get shocked.
Like, they get, exactly. So they can really feel like they don't understand why is, you know, food or beer or hotel rooms, actually, because you can find really good prices on 5-star hotel rooms, cheap compared to other countries, while the wine actually is much more expensive. And then again, like we said, they compare most of the time with the local products, you know, the local beers, for example, local spirits, which are much cheaper than wine. And for this reason, they feel like they've been cheated or they're being overcharged, let's say, for wine. So obviously, let's say that it's not an easy task to go selling wine, especially some premium wine in Thailand. But there's still a good amount of customer who focus more on the quality rather than just, you know, cheaper wines, just easier to sell. So, but I think that, yeah.
My experience, my personal experience was that I found a lot of people in Thailand really willing to understand, first of all, which is always good. And talking about the people like attending, wine tasting, of course, but also attending like events at restaurants, willing to know, they are very passionate, and they really, they have a kind of sensitiveness for good wine, and
no, of course,
which is something which is very promising. This is the part I want to highlight. I mean, of course, despite the difficulties of this year, of course, but in general, I see Thailand as a very promising market, full of potentials. I have to say that. This is my personal feeling. But
of course, what I was talking about was more like the tourists, let's say, that come to Thailand. Then if we talk about the local Thais, or even the local foreigner who live in Thailand, then it's different, because of course we are living here. Of course, Thai people are living here. We are used to these kind of prices. We know how the taxation works. So we know when we go to a restaurant, we open the wine list already, and we know if we've been treated well, let's say, by the outlet, or we've been, charged a little bit more. Of course, what we learned during this COVID situation in particular, I would say, is that restaurants and in general, all F&B outlets, they cannot rely on tourism only. We know, because like Michel said, we went from 5 million tourists to 40 million tourists. But at the same time, we went to probably from very little number of hotel and restaurant to a huge amount of hotel and restaurant in Thailand. And in Bangkok in particular, I still see more and more places opening, more and more restaurants, clubs, bars, wine bars, and, even during this situation. So how do we actually now manage to get customers in if the tourists are not available? Because we're not going to see anybody until next year, probably.
Clear. And what is the biggest market in Thailand?
But obviously, if we talk about areas, Bangkok is still the biggest market. It probably will always be. First of all, it's because everybody who comes to Thailand at least spends a night or two in Bangkok or arrives in Bangkok. Number two, there's a lot of business travelers as well that comes to Thailand, and all of them come to Bangkok, I would say. And number three, of course, is where all the, I would say, the elite, the Thai elite, and all the richest local person live or have their head offices or they have their businesses.
Yeah,
so I still think that Bangkok, even in the future, will still represent the biggest part of the market. But the number two, and I think Luca can tell us more about this.
exactly.
I think it's Phuket.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to understand. Yeah, exactly. How big is the tourist market?
Well,
Luca,
in
maybe you can.
Sorry.
Luca.
I think Luca, go for Phuket tourist market.
Let's say I have a vision of the market in Phuket, of course, but I totally agree on what Matteo was talking about. Actually, personally, we always work with the residents in my shop and in my area. What I can see is the clients are mature clients, becoming more and more mature. Especially, we are now having more and more Thai clients coming and try and experience the wine experience. So now we are forced to work with the local market and both expats and Thai people. But actually, this is what we always did. Of course, Phuket now is suffering a lot for closing the borders, and we don't have any tourists coming to Phuket. And this everybody knows, and this affects quite drastically and dramatically all the hotels and the restaurant there. They were focused on tourism, and some areas, especially such Patong area, Kata area, and many others. But it's quite understandable. During these years, they focus on tourism because in high season they were working quite well with the tourism. So now everything changed, and let's say in Phuket there are 2-3 areas they are working much better because probably they always work with the locals, such as Chalong area, let's say the southern area. Something is happening there, quite interesting. Phuket Town is a very interesting area where many things are happening, many new places, new bars, new restaurants, and of course my area. So my area is pretty new area compared to the others, but it became a quite interesting point for both Thai people willing to have have spend time in Western restaurants and drink Western drinks and wines, of course. So I feel a little bit actually lucky to be in one of these areas, but we are trying to do our best to push and to let people come and try our style, our wines. And this is not an easy thing, but especially talking about the taxation and what we said before. But as we can see, as Diego said about the potential market, we still have to do a great job. We have to work hard because there is still a great potential working.
And you are doing very, very good. So I believe that you're definitely gonna succeed. Of course, when talking about local being the consumer, so we, of course, locals go to restaurants and when travel domestically, they also go to hotel. But in general, we also saw from Diego's explanation that a good part of the consumption comes on the relies on the off-trade channel. So maybe Michel, can you give us an idea of how the off-trade channel work in Thailand?
Yes. So well, I will talk a little bit of the setup and then the after COVID, because I think COVID has totally changed the market.
We know.
Like everywhere. So the off-trade is mainly categorized into 4 different categories. One is a convenience store. So the main being 7-Eleven from Japan, then Family Mart, a few other. There are small shops, 24/7 open, very few alcohol on the shelf, mass product, etc. Then comes hypermarkets, which is Tesco, which is pulling out at the end of the year, Big C, and then cash on carry macro. They are more low to medium spender. Also, their average alcohol is mostly brands and low-end products. Then we have what we call supermarkets, which are normally locally owned chain of between 3 to 30, 50 branches. They are like Foodland, Villa Market, UFM Fuji, and these are more specialized towards the middle to high society and tourists and expats. They have also more imported products, which means they would have a wine cellar as well, and also having a choice of maybe from 100 to 3,000 different labels. Central retail being the biggest probably today. We stop supermarket. And then for us, one of the most promising and easy to work with are the specialty store, which means wine shops. They are now mushrooming, especially in Bangkok, but we can see also in Phuket, like Luca Cini shop.
Yeah.
And every region as well has wine shops coming up, because the Thai consumer, when he tend to buy wine, his knowledge is not there yet. So he really rely on recommendation. And what's happening in the supermarket, Tesco, Foodland, etc., the level of knowledge of our wonderful PG girls, how we call them, is unfortunately a little bit limited. So they tend to go to specialized store where they can have confidence into buying a product.
Very good, very good. And what happened with COVID? Because you know, the supermarkets, people, they have limited also access to supermarkets because of the lockdown, and how the purchase of wine changed during this tremendous year.
So like I mentioned before, Thailand is a very religious country. So the first thing when the lockdown happened, we also had an alcohol ban, like South Africa.
Exactly.
That lasted about 6 weeks. So before the ban, everybody rushed to the supermarket to stock up. When the ban was cancelled in beginning of May, then everybody rushed also. And actually the month of May, we had a wonderful month of sales.
Oh, fantastic.
So I have to say, I mean, the retail sales has increased a lot, and COVID has, like in the US or UK, has really made people understand to go to the retail, to the supermarket to buy his wines.
Yeah. And because on some other markets, what made the difference was e-commerce. And so I know that Thai is also peculiar in this. So I don't know, what can you give us an idea of how the e-commerce work in Thailand?
Yeah, so e-commerce started in Thailand about 7-8 years ago, but with a very low penetration. And in Thailand, as I mentioned, our anti-alcohol regulation are very strict. We cannot do promotion, no price discount, no gift on purchase. But the online was always a gray area. The government didn't say it's not allowed. Yes, it's allowed. They kept quiet. So the e-commerce was starting to grow, especially in the past 2 years. We had GD came in, Lazada was coming up as well. They were planning to sell alcohol. So all this, and standalone, single owned website coming up, becoming very popular. Of course, with COVID, actually some website crashed because they had so much demand. It was a really huge business, and it became very trendy or common to buy online. That's when the government realized it was too trendy. And it was too dangerous for the young underage sales, because the alcohol is 21 years in Thailand. So.
Wow. And okay, so far we talked about the past and the actual situation. Let's try now to focus on a little bit on the future. So, and again on you, Michel, sorry. What do you see, let's say, the real change in Thailand, let's say in the midterm period? All these rules that you have there, and do you think that you have the perception that something is going to change?
So I think we will continue the growth in consumption on the Thai consumer. This has been engraved into their habits to drink wine. So that consumption will grow. Whether it's double digit like in the past 15 years or single digit, I'm not sure. It will depend on taxation. Taxation is very important, and it's the thing that is hurting the business the most. Any tax
but do you feel that something will change as far as taxation is concerned?
So
better,
we have the feedback. We don't think so. In the next 4 to 5 years, we think the government might be stable. We will have more anti-alcohol rules.
Okay.
One could be the labeling of the product, same as the cigarette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Okay. And yeah. And Matteo, can you? What's your perception on the future? What will be what do you feel is going to be the market dynamics? Let's say.
Well, let's say that although the consumption, like Michel said, might grow, I think it will grow mostly on the off-trade and retail side, because obviously without tourists coming in for the next, let's say, another at least 6 to 9 months, most of the hotel will struggle. Therefore, we will not have hotel wine sales. But I have to say that during this difficult period, what I saw is that the customer, let's say the restaurant and the F&B outlet, that were focusing mostly on giving quality wine, quality food, and quality service, which is also very, very important here in Thailand. They are actually doing even better than before, because they always been focusing on the local customers. And this is actually very, very important. Also, the hotel will have to, if they want to keep up, let's say, with all these great outlets that are all around Bangkok, also the hotel will have to step up a little bit in their game to give a little bit more value and more premium. I think the word premiumization was something that we heard a lot in the past 2 years, I would say. So both restaurants and hotels trying to offer more premium products at, let's say, a reasonable price for how possible it is, considering the tax that we have. But then again, the hotel really will have to step up a lot, because there are so many good outlets in Thailand which are doing a great job. And if you also, another thing that we didn't discuss is that in the Thai culture, it's very common to bring your own wine at the restaurant.
Oh, wow,
And
yeah.
yes, so we didn't discuss this thing here. So
This is very important.
this is a little bit of a problem for me, which I'm selling to on-trade outlets, while it's not going to be a problem for Michel or a company that they sell a lot through, let's say, online or supermarkets or specialized wine shop, because it's actually very, very common, especially among Thai consumers, to go to a restaurant and bring your own wines.
Do restaurants apply corkage fee?
They do.
Right.
But again, it's not always that simple, because many restaurants, they have regular, or let's say powerful people, or people which are in a position that they might not feel happy to pay a corkage fee. So I hear most of the time customers saying, okay, I'm waiving the corkage fee because he's a regular customer, or he's a good friend, or he's a long-term customer. So it's not always applied. And even, I just give you an example of a hotel, which of course I'm not gonna name it, but in the past, this hotel used to have one of the highest corkage fee in Thailand, because it was relying 99.9% on tourists. Now that there are no tourists, basically they waive their corkage fee, because they know that Thai consumers, they want to go there and they want to bring their own their own wines, right? So as you can see, I think the market, it will change. I mean, the hotels cannot really do anymore whatever they want when it comes to pricing. They will have to be very competitive. They will have to offer a premium product at a very competitive price. Otherwise, they will not survive. Also, another trend that I start to see around some hotels is that they are outsourcing their F&B outlets. So hotels renting out their restaurants, or their lobby to sell wine to other companies.
Okay.
I don't really I agree 100% on this, because I mean, like, when you're having a hotel, you have your all F&B team, it means that they basically are not gonna do much, right? So
yeah, right.
and they're losing potential extra wine and food sales. But at the same time, it's a kind of a way to say, like, okay, we understand that maybe we cannot really bring our sales to a certain level, so we outsource our outlets to a professional F&B company that can open their own restaurant, and they can bring in probably more customers than we. So
clear.
This is a trend that I'm seeing actually already in quite a few hotels, and I think in the future will be more. It will grow more and more.
Okay.
Alberto, sorry, I jump in a little bit as well. Following your question and what Matteo said, I'll bring the focus a little bit more on Italian wine, because as we're seeing, this period is not an easy one to grow. But I believe that for Italian wine, there is an opportunity to grow even in a market that is more or less stagnating. And what is this? Italian wine has a huge competitive advantage in terms of variety with respect to other wines. So when you see that French wine is basically having like a huge revenue with comparison to Italian wine, don't get me wrong, love French wine, they make amazing products, but the variety that we can offer is very, very a point that we should focus on much more than we do now. And for example, there are many, importers that are starting to see this, and they're focusing also to import not only the main wines that everybody knows. So I remember, and this is
in general. I believe that we need to highlight the peculiarity of Italian wines. That's for sure, and this is where also importers need to focus as well. So you're right. We're definitely one of the country with the biggest varieties of grape varieties, and of course and different wine based on each variety. So I believe that this is where we can make the difference. And
you see, for example, in the past 20 years, and I mean Michel can confirm it, to you that in the past, if you look at IWS portfolio, they of course, like everybody has, they used to have the Pinot Grigio, the Chianti, these kind of wines. If you look at, say, for example, okay, AWS is focused on international portfolio, so they have a wide selection from all the countries. So, but if you look also at Texica portfolio, which is an Italian specialist, the variety of wines that you start to have now is really impressive. Luca probably can confirm this to you, and I think that this is the right step to promote what the Italian excellence is. And it's not easy, but I think that that's the way to go, to go from.
Of course.
From
Yeah, and if I can jump in, also I think that, like you said, we have so much varietal, because also we have a great variety of food as well, I would say, in Italy. And in Thailand, there are actually a lot of great Italian restaurants, and more coming. And I do really hope that one of them will get, also an international recognition, such as a Michelin star, to put again the Italian cuisine, into this international award, where can also, like, people start to see Italian restaurant more and more, look more and more for Italian restaurant, and want to learn more about the food, and of course about the wines.
No, you're right, and this is something that, as an export manager, I see around, because when you have fine dining restaurants spreading Italian cuisine, and it really helps a lot establishing Italian premium wines, and the knowledge and the culture. This is very, very, very important. In this moment in Thailand, we are a little bit behind. This is for sure. But already the first fine dining restaurants already are there. I'm thinking Aqua in Phuket, which is very, very is awarded, and when I was there, I was absolutely amazed. Absolutely, is an ambassador. Alessandro is a good ambassador of Italian cuisine there, and so this is something that really helped. And in general, I believe that talking about prices, okay, since taxation is so high, this is my perception. Sometimes we tend to go low end with price, and of course also with quality. Maybe this is something that we need to also try to establish on a higher end. I can see my only experience with Valpolicella, as I said, and I'm pretty happy about what's happening. So it's I believe that this is still a good choice to push on the high end and premium wines.
And the more the local Thais learn about Italian food, premium Italian restaurants, the more they will learn about premium Italian food, Italian wine as well, and the more they will be happy to spend more money to purchase Italian premium wine. Because at the moment, we know that Thai people, they don't mind maybe to spend money on Burgundy or Bordeaux or some champagne label, but they still feel a little bit less confident when it comes to spend a good amount of money when it comes to Italian wine. Why we want to tell them that, Italian wine are as good as, and price-wise, we are even more competitive, I would say. So
yeah,
there's no reason why not purchasing a great bottle of Italian wine.
Exactly. Okay, we are going towards the end. I would love to have each of you to give some suggestion to wineries. So how they can plan or schedule the next promotional activities, how they can support you guys in your job. You're doing great job, struggling, of course, this year, especially in Thailand. But what can wineries do to help you? We can start from Luca.
Okay, well, from my experience in the last 7 years, I would say wineries, they have to support us with their presence, even physical presence, in order to organize events, tastings, and these events are very, very, very important. I can see it from my experience, and I'm still doing this. And people, they feel more in touch and, of course, more interested in events related to ambassadors or producers or winemakers coming directly from Italy. I strongly believe that this is a big help that the wineries can give to us. So be present in our territory. This will be very important for Italian wines to grow in consumption and in, you know, notoriety.
Yeah, I talk as an export manager. I wish I could, and and I really look forward to be back in Thailand,
In
because
the meantime, we help you here by ourselves. Don't worry.
yeah, exactly. Look forward. And what about Matteo?
So, like Luca said, I think that the presence of the export managers is super important, because that also gives knowledge, you know, to the Thai consumers and to the local consumers. And the more knowledge they have, the more they feel confident when it comes to purchase a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
On the other hand, of course, you know, I don't want to sound greedy, but giving always the best prices to Thailand is quite, for us as an importer, is quite important, because of, not because we want to make a lot of money, I have to say this, but because, as you know, the taxes are some of the worst in the world. If not, we are in the top 3, I think. So unfortunately, we need extra support also on that side from the winery if we want to be competitive, because in a small market, like Diego showed before, with only 1% of the alcohol consumption being wine, there are hundreds and hundreds of wine importers, all fighting for the same 1%. So if we want to be on top, we have to be, of course, professional, of course, knowledgeable, give this knowledge to our customer, but at the same time, we also have to be competitive.
Oh, no, you're right. You're definitely right. Absolutely. And Michel, what can you recommend to wineries and export managers?
As both of my friends were mentioning, they are totally right. Because you have to look at like we mentioned, the Italian wine market in Thailand is small, and it's very focused on the on-trade.
Yeah.
The problem in Italy, you don't have really big brands, large companies, you know, worldwide renowned, which are working in a different way, like spirits, doing promotion, A&P support, and automatic sales. So we need each producer from Italy to be very conscious on the market. So listening to the importer, what he recommends. Sometimes the producer wants to sell his Brunello, but the Rosso would work better, you know. So listening to the importer and to work closely together with us to promote his wines, because our staff knowledge is as well not as developed as in other countries.
Yeah, you're
so
right. You know, yeah, I can agree with you all. It's again from the standpoint of an export manager. I focus a good portion of my job in spreading the small portion of culture of the companies I work for, and it's very important. It's peculiar, and you see results. The more you invest in letting people understand about you and your wine and your area, and the more it's easier for them to buy your products. And of course, as Matteo was mentioning, not to be greedy, but it's right. We need to understand how the market works and think and behaves. And after that, we need to have a specific pricing strategy. Of course, each part of the chain should give up a little bit in order to be competitive. So it's we need to be ready for that, starting from the producers, and everybody will do his part. Let's just have a strategy, and once we have that strategy, we can be successful. That's for sure. There is a lot to do in this market. Diego, you are last but not least. So, what you can recommend? You are a different perspective, because you represent wineries on the market.
Correct.
And So you have the
in a sense, I'm a joint in between what
exactly.
Michel and Matteo were saying, right?
Yeah.
And what wineries should do. So like in this sense, like knowing the market, being based in Bangkok, I hope I do have the knowledge to know how to suggest to spend the investment, which can be money, which can be time, actually.
Exactly.
In here. And
resources.
what Matteo and Michel and also Luca said, they're all right. What is the main problem? The main problem is that, of course, like resources are not infinite, and really you really need to invest in everything, because like education is really important. The more they know, the more they're confident to buy. But at the same time, you cannot just spend time on this, because like you also have to organize the dinners, the support, the tasting that you can give to Luca and to all the restaurants and hotels, because they also, from their perspective, okay, perfect, you can train my staff, you can do all these kind of activities, but at the end of the day, I have to move the bottles, right? So it's trying to find the right how to say balance in between like the different activities, and I believe that that's probably the most difficult thing to do. But like spending how to say, giving attention to the market is really important. And of course, like it's more difficult to do from Europe than actually for me is easier because it's
of course I'm because you're there.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. Oh wow, it was super interesting. We have one question which comes from Sarah, and she said, I write about the online sales for wine stopped in Thailand. Is that true? Maybe Michel, which is who we're talking about online.
So it is half correct. It will stop December the 6th.
Okay.
The government announced last month that they are banning online sales.
Clear. Okay.
The main point is what they are banning is online payment and online ordering.
That's the okay. So it's basically it's
so the online is gone.
Exactly. Okay, very good. I'm super happy that we managed to talk about the different aspects of this market, and I have to thank you, all of you, because you dedicate a very good quality time to this webinar, and it's very important. We need to provide the wineries and export managers like me ideas and a good picture of the market in order to make the right choices when talking about allocating resources. And so thank you again. I hope you enjoyed as well as me, and see you next time. Thank you very much.
Grazie.
Thank you, Alberto.
Thank you.
Ciao everybody.
Ciao. Bye.